Bruce, you can't keep doing this.
I have to. No one else will.
Every drop of blood, everything you've sacrificed. The city is safer now. It's made you a target. And people will keep you in the crosshairs until you're shot out of the sky.
Yeah, well, that's the point. Let them come.
Shit! The hell'd he go? Whatever got in, don't let it get out.
Alrighty. Let me get some flan here. Alrighty, here we go. The first episode of Batman the Telltale series was released worldwide August 2016, and the final episode, episode 5, was released December 2016. The series was developed and published by Telltale Games. Duh. The point-and-click adventure was released on basically every console available. The Android, iOS, which means your iPhone, Windows, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and the Nintendo Switch. When this game was announced and released, I wasn't on top of it. I actually didn't know too much about it. Regardless, after about, say about a week after its release, I bought it, without much hesitation because I enjoyed The Wolf Among Us, and I like The Walking Dead from the Telltale series, from Telltale. And I like Batman. So, I just figured this is a good investment. It was a no-brainer. The score I'm giving Batman the Telltale series is a 7.5 out of 10. So let's go into the reasons why.
Let's not stand on ceremony here. Mr. Wayne.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. A humble district attorney like myself is not used to such a ringing endorsement. Even one who cut Gotham's crime rate in half.
The design of this Telltale game is no different from Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 1 from 2013. I know it's not their first game, but it's the most popular game that they had at the time. It was basically like Telltale's resurgence, I believe. At least that's what I think. That's what I saw. For most game series, and developers, keeping the same design in your video game, for a couple of years going, it would probably be something really negative. If like, this game's been the same for, so many years, they haven't really changed it. That would usually be a really bad thing, but not for Telltale. For one, the visuals have proven to be timeless. It's almost like watching a comic book being brought to life in front of you. The kind of art style it has, it's very unique, I will say that. But more importantly, the game design has proven to be timeless. It is simple and it's effective. I honestly believe that I will feel the same way 10 years from now. Probably even 20 years from now, just because of how simple it is. But the best thing about this format is not that it's, not that it's potentially timeless, but rather it's rather it's accessibility. Anybody can pick this game up and play it. So, and this is a bit of a side story, but I hope it proves how accessible this game is. Far Cry 5 came out March 2018, which is pretty recent considering the recording of this episode, which was, today is May 2018, so 2 months ago. And on a Tuesday, the weekend just before that specific Tuesday, I had a couple grueling shifts. I like that word, grueling. It included about a 15-hour shift on Sunday, and then I go back to work Monday, my regular 8 hours. So when Tuesday came around, which is my day off, the place that I work at is closed on Tuesdays. And I went to go pick up Far Cry. And when it actually came time, to sitting down and actually playing Far Cry, I was just not mentally all there, to really give the game my all. And this has nothing to do with the introduction of Far Cry. I was just still tired from my work shifts on the weekend. So, about after an hour into Far Cry 5, I ended up playing this game. I actually ended up just buying the second season of Batman. I'm like, well, I'm not just going to start playing it. I haven't played Batman Season 1 in a while, so I might as well just download Batman Season 1 again, replay it. And despite being really tired, too tired to even play Far Cry, this game still allowed me to... Batman Season 1 still allowed me to just feel that urge, feel that hole I had. Fill that hole, wow. Feel that urge I had to really play a video game. Because to me, video games are supposed to be relaxing. And for someone like me, I know it's the complete opposite of relaxing, but I also like to put my all into a video game. I like to really put myself in that game to really fully enjoy the game and really immerse myself. But I just wasn't all there for Far Cry, and I was able to fill that urge with Batman, the Telltale series. Even more recently, I played Outlast, for like the first time, and I got that game for free on PS Plus, and I bought the triple pack like a long time ago, and I finally got around to it. And even though I didn't have the long hours, the long 15-hour shifts like crazy, like I did for Far Cry, I still came home after work, and I just didn't feel like I wanted to play hide and seek. I just wasn't all mentally there for Outlast. And the focus for me, like my focus, it just wasn't there. And I like to think that I'm not the only one that likes to do what I do when I like to relax. Like I said, when I play video games, I like to put my all into it. And I feel like I'm not the only one that relaxes in that weird way, because I know it is a bit hypocritical. Okay, cool. So I guess it's nice that Batman the Telltale series is just another one of these games that is just really accessible to play. When you're not all mentally there, but you still want to play a video game, the Telltale series games are really good at serving as that substitution. And Batman continues that trend, is what I'm saying.
Let's not stand on ceremony here. Mr. Wayne.
They're on the 52nd floor. I'm going in.
Hey, wait! Wait for backup!
Don't need it.
Now, just because the format is very accessible, I don't even know what I was trying to say there. It should go without saying it doesn't mean the game is perfect. Just because it's really accessible doesn't mean it's not perfect. Back when the episodes were first, rolling out, the game was a mess. It wasn't broken to the point where it was just unplayable, but it was a visual mess from time to time. The game has aged well, I guess you could say that, over time with a bunch of patches, but it's still not perfect. In my first playthrough, I was on the last episode, and there was this huge fight happening at Arkham Asylum. All the prisoners broke out, and they were going ape shit, especially in the cafeteria. Some asylum patients were just, damn near killing the asylum staff. And, in true Batman fashion, he knew he had to save those in danger, before going after the big boss. But at the same time, the big main villain, was on the other side of the room, so he had to do it quickly. Anyways, in short, the player had to... Sorry, I just got a text from my best friend right now. I'm just... it's because... It threw me off. Sorry. Damn it. I have to turn off my phone while I do this shit. Okay, so what was I saying? So in true Batman fashion, he knew he had to save the people in danger, but at the same time, the big main villain was on the other side of the cafeteria. So in short, the player had to do a bunch of quick time events as he went through the cafeteria. The problem was that for some reason, none of the people actually loaded into the game. No, it's cool. It's cool, Max. I'm just doing a review. No, are you going to make any more noise? Alright, cool. He's on his way up. Fuck, man. So many distractions right now. Hey, so anyways, none of the people loaded in. So all you saw were like just weapons, like trays, like lunch trays and knives and just floating around, and a bunch of eyeballs for whatever reason. I don't know why eyeballs aren't part of the body. So it was just like a bunch of eyeballs floating around, and a bunch of, you know, trays, knives, and forks and tasers just all floating around this room. And Batman also didn't load in. So when you did these QuickTime events, you heard the like intended like sounds, like the intended sound effects of like bah, and all that shit. But all you saw was like a tray, you know, or fork, or all these weapons floating around. That's it. So it's like, so, you know, when you hit someone with a lunch tray, you when you are physically there, you can see, or when you watch it on a movie or something, you see, you know, oh, they're getting hit over the head with the tray. But in the game, during this particular scene where it all glitched out, the lunch tray was obviously just floating. So it was slamming down on thin air, and you would hear like a sound. It didn't make any sense. It was like a creepy haunted house. I don't know, just, yeah, you know what? Like a creepy haunted house. Imagine walking into a room where like there's a bunch of ghosts, you know, are fighting. Like, say, like, you know, you went to your dining room, there's just a whole bunch of chairs and tables being thrown and shit, but you can't actually see it. So anyways, because I actually wanted to see what was going on, and it was pretty climactic, actually. It was, you know, one big fight. It was towards the end of the game. It was a big fight scene. I really wanted to see it. So I restarted it, and it happened again. And then I tried to restart it a third time. And on my third attempt, the assets, like the tables, you know, and like the overhead lights and stuff, they kind of just stretched out. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. And at that point, I had no idea what I was looking at anymore. Like, it wasn't even clear what I was looking at anymore. While I do have to say that was the worst experience. And I do have to mention that when I most recently played the game, that was not a problem. But, you know, the rest of the game, it did still have its bits and problems, bits and stuff, and bits stuff from, you know, from that asylum scene sprinkled into like the rest of the game. So like, you know, there were still floating eyeballs in a different scene, or there was just like a quick frame where the character disappeared but their weapon was still there. So everything that like manifested into that giant cafeteria scene, although that cafeteria scene wasn't as bad when I recently played it, some of the little things that I did see in that cafeteria scene were all over the game, and it was really weird. So yeah, like I said, sometimes people disappeared and reappeared, you know, during action sequences. Textures would stretch a little bit, even for like a split second. In my most recent playthrough, these huge problems were mostly fixed. You know, there was just a lot of little blemishes. Like, there was a moment where Bruce Wayne is talking to Commissioner Gordon, and his head is doing this like weird snapping thing, and at some point his head wasn't aligned with his body correctly. It was weird. It was almost like, I wouldn't say it was an Exorcist thing where he was like looking forward and like the front of his body was his back kind of thing. It wasn't like his head went like a full 180 or anything. It was like, it just looked really unnatural and unnerving. And the fact that it was doing a bunch of close-ups, it didn't really help that error. But, you know, besides, you know, there are a few visual errors like that, you know, that really caught my eye. Yeah, it's not that bad, I guess. But my biggest complaint is definitely the frame rate. The frame rate goes berserk. Berserk. Whenever there's a lot going on. And this sucks because it wasn't... I lost my train of thought. Frame rate. The frame rate usually, you know, fucked up when there was a lot of when there was a lot going on, and unfortunately that sucks because usually that affects you during the big action scenes, and that becomes a problem when it affects your gameplay as well. Sometimes a frame will just skip and it causes you to mess up or miss a prompt unintendedly. Also, just side note, be aware that this review is based on the PlayStation 4 version, and the footage was captured on an Elgato 60. which records in 60 frames per second. So what you're seeing may not be a perfect visual representation of what I experienced. Anyways, yeah, a usual problem is, it's usually just a blemish, like I was saying. Those little visual errors, you're like, whatever, it happens. You accept it and you move on. However, when a visual problem affects your gameplay, that's a big deal, especially when the gameplay is so simple and narrative driven. Missing one button because of a visual error, it could impact your story, and that could be infuriating. If it could be infuriating if it wasn't your fault. If you fuck something up, you're like, I didn't mean to do that. That's one thing, but it's another thing where you did press the button, but the frame skip fucked it up for you, and now essentially your whole game path may have changed, and that would piss me off. It's also a problem because this usually tended to happen when there was a big action sequence, like I'm saying. A big draw to any Batman game is kicking ass as Batman. So it sucked ass when the time came to finally play as Batman, in a big fight sequence or whatever, and the frame rate kind of downplayed the sequence, rather than feeling like, yeah, Batman is kicking ass. It was more like, shit, did I get the button? I think I got it. Did I do it? Is the game about to crash? I am not a video game developer, and I cannot begin to comprehend the difficulties of being one. But, and this is a big but if one of the biggest draws to your game cannot run smoothly, maybe some revisions are in order. If a frame if a frame rate shit itself, every time you shot a gun in Call of Duty, that's a problem. If every time Nathan Drake grabbed a ledge in Uncharted and the game slowed down, that's a problem. I know this is the first run of a new engine that Telltale's using, and, there were bound to be problems, but I have to admit that is a big deal. If one of the biggest draws in your games cannot run smoothly, you need to work on it a little bit longer, or I don't know, maybe if it was the money men, you gotta show the money men, like, hey, I know you guys want to make money, and you guys gave us a timetable, but this thing is like, it's not ready. I don't know. I'm just talking out of my ass. I'm talking shit.
Let's not stand on ceremony here. Mr. Wayne.
Vicky's right. It shouldn't be this quiet.
Be on your guard. I'll continue monitoring the drone feeds from here.
Thanks. Go and have a look around.
This is an original Batman story, and it was a good one at that. It's difficult to really go into the story here simply because the game is narrative heavy, and because the game is altered by the choices you make. I guess, just in general, in this game, you play as Bruce Wayne and Batman, and as Bruce Wayne, you are tasked with helping your close friend Harvey Dent, Harvey, get elected as Gotham City mayor, in order to combat the corruption. As Batman, you are tasked with fighting the children of Arkham, who are also fighting the corruption in Gotham City, except, of course, if Batman is fighting him, that means the children of Arkham are doing some fucked up shit. So even though they want to do something good, they're doing it in a fucked up way. The Bruce Wayne storyline reminded me of the Long Halloween, which is a story about Harvey Dent essentially losing his mind, and it really reminded me of The Dark Knight, with hope being a central theme in his election campaign. So that was pretty cool. In the Batman storyline, the villain was a bit of a twist when they turned a normally quote-unquote good side character that nobody ever really cares about into a full-blown villain, and that was appreciated. It was an attempt to make this character their own. It was Telltale's way of making, okay, we're going to make this character our own character. And they did the same with Bruce Wayne's parents, which is pretty cool. They're always referred to as these, good-hearted philanthropists. They're like Uncle Ben. It's like, Uncle Ben was always good, in Spider-Man. And in this season of Batman, his parents, have a really dark secret. So, while you're playing as Bruce Wayne, it's easier. It makes it easier to immerse yourself. When the guy you're playing as, is just as confused as you are. For example, like, say you're playing a Spider-Man game, and I think it would be really easy to relate if all of a sudden, you know, in this storyline of Spider-Man, it was real that Uncle Ben liked touching kids. You know, like, he was this huge child molester, and he had this big ring of, like, trafficking and shit. Like, you would be thrown off because Uncle Ben is always the good guy. He's always the guy who gave a shit. So all of a sudden, if, like, you know, he had this dark secret and you're playing a Spider-Man, you'd be like, what the fuck? Is this true? This can't be true. This is lie. These are all lies. It really does help you immerse yourself with Spider-Man if, you know, something like that happened. And it's basically what happened in this Batman game. It's like, oh, they had a big dark secret, but, you know, in a lot of lore, Bruce Wayne's parents are usually just like, yeah, they were good guys. You know, they invested in Gotham, and then they died. They were good people that died. So it's easy to just be like, oh, yeah, they're always good guys. Anyways, it was just a long tangent. Something else I really liked was that none of the villains were established. None of the big Batman. There are, if I'm not mistaken, there are 3 big Batman villains in this game that are like, that are in Arkham, like City and Asylum and Night and literally any Batman movie ever. And I like that none of those big villains were established. They all start there. You see them basically from the ground up, which I really liked. It really did help. I think it really helped Telltale create their own identity. You know, instead of doing the generic like, oh, he's already Two-Face. Oh, he's already this. Oh, he's already that. At least you get to see them become that villain, which makes for a better villain, honestly. This game was a fun, fresh tale on the Batman universe, and I really enjoyed my time with it. If you're a Batman fan and you're having an off day with video games, this might just be for you. It's definitely very easy to jump into. The story has a few plot holes here and there, but nothing to really gripe over. More importantly, though, it has its own identity. It isn't a reboot. It's not a remake. Like I said, it did remind me of other stories, but it definitely isn't like a reboot or a remake or any of that. It just, you could tell where it pulled its influences from, which is cool if you can notice it. But if not, these influences are so small that you wouldn't even be like, oh, they're just trying to copy this shit or that shit. So yeah, it's not doing it. The game has its technical problems, but it looks like they've patched as much as they can, or as much as they could, because like I mentioned, the game had a lot more problems back when I first played it compared to now. Anyways, all in all, minus the technical problems, I actually recommend this story. I actually recommend the story told in this season of Batman, the Telltale series. So for me, I'm giving Batman, the Telltale series Season 1 a 7.5.
This explains a lot, actually.
Out of 10.
Quite understandable to stray from the path now and again, so long as you can find your way back. You bury the person, Bruce, but you never bury the memory.
Sometimes I wish I could.